Okay, wow, huge story, huge. So I wanted to include everybody in the conversation. So anyone who's a subscriber, and all you have to do is subscribe, you'll immediately be let into the chat. I wanted everybody to be able to participate. This is a serious discussion though, so I'm not going to be recognizing like gifted memberships or shout outs and stuff like that, but I will be keeping an eye on the chat so that I can, see your comments. Although it's going pretty fast, I'm glad to see so many of you engaged in this conversation. But, it is the first stream of the week, so let me quickly gift my 5 memberships that I gift at the beginning of every stream. Here we go. As most streams are members only in the chat. All right, so thank you so much for joining. Okay, so how are we going to do this? How is this going to go down? We'll do a couple polls, respectfully. We're going to make sure this is a really serious and respectful conversation because, stuff just got real for Jonathan Majors. This is very serious. So the way we're going to do it is that I have a table of contents here of what we're going to discuss. And I also am going to mark, for those of you who aren't watching this live, I'll be marking each section so that you know where we are in the discussion, if there's a certain part of the discussion that interests you more than others. All right, so I guess where I want to start is, here's where I do want to start with a poll. I want to know what verdict did you expect? Guilty, innocent, wasn't sure, and then not following. All right, so you guys can vote. Even if you're not a subscriber, anybody can vote in a poll. All right, well, and there, by the way, I will, as I said, I'm keeping an eye on your comments, and there will be a Q&A at the very end for you to ask me questions. All right, so Dr. J, I appreciate that. I'm not doing shout outs because, it's just not appropriate to the discussion. All right. So we're going to start off with verdict explained. All right. So you saw the headline, Jonathan Majors found guilty. Now going into the verdict, the case, I believe, ended on Thursday afternoon. The jury needed they had Friday to deliberate, then they took the weekend. And then today, just about an hour ago, they delivered their verdict. Now, with the video evidence that made the rounds, TMZ, I think, released that, with his girlfriend, Grace Jabbari, chasing him through the streets, some fans felt at that point there was a 50-50 chance he'd be found innocent. And some people thought perhaps he'd be, not forget 50-50, people felt that footage exonerated him. So I think that this is going to be a blow to a lot of his fans who were really pulling for him. Now, I think that it is fair to bring up that there is some disparity, it seems, between how, say, Sean Penn and Josh Brolin were treated, just like I saw one of you just brought that up. None of them were hauled into court. So why, are Jonathan Majors and to some degree Will Smith, why are they suffering such serious repercussions while their white peers are not? Some of you brought up Ezra Miller. The thing is that in those situations, either people did not press charges or, the people who are the supposed victims didn't press charges, or the law enforcement or, the district attorneys in the areas, they chose not to move forward. But the New York District Attorney's Office did choose to move forward with this, and Grace Jabbari did not drop the charges. She didn't say, I don't want to press charges against him. So, but still, there is a disparity. I think, you can't deny that. Oh, Jay Kelly says Jabbari didn't press charges. Well, then that's just the state. And I have to tell you, the New York District Attorney's Office is extremely diverse. So it's not like you had an entirely white district attorney's office coming after Jonathan Majors. Although the New York District Attorney's Office is extremely aggressive. They're the only ones, or one of the few states going after Trump, as you know. Now, this was a jury trial. We're going to talk about whether or not he's going to jail, avoided Parrott. That's actually, as you can see, one of the sections. But we're not there yet. So this was a jury trial, all right? 6 people, 3 men, 3 women. I did not see a breakdown of the ethnicity. So he was guilty on 2 of the 4 counts. He was found guilty on reckless assault and harassment, but he was not guilty on intentional assault in the 3rd degree or aggravated assault in the 2nd degree. Basically what they're saying, Marvel just dropped him. All right, I'm not surprised. That's what I would have done. Let's see what Variety's saying. It is literally breaking news. Hold on, let me check it out. Oh, it must be part of their bigger story. All right, so I haven't seen that anywhere else. All right, so we'll talk about that, as you can see. I would have dropped him as well. Oh, Deadline's reporting it. Thank you. Let me look. This is what happens when you cover a breaking story so quickly. Let's see here. But, you know, it's breaking news. Oh, there we go. All right. Jonathan Majors fired by Disney Marvel Studios after a guilty verdict. This is similar to what Warner Brothers did with Johnny Depp after his guilty verdict. Studios don't want to be anywhere near a guilty verdict. Jonathan Majors is out of the Marvel Studios kingdom. The news in the wake of the Primetime Emmy-nominated actor being found guilty of reckless assault and harassment in his domestic violence trial by a 6-person New York City jury. A studio rep confirmed the news about the decision not to move forward with Majors in the MCU. All right, so we don't want to get ahead of ourselves in the conversation, but we'll address that when we get down to the future at Marvel, which is now non-existent. All right, so basically what this verdict says is that he is found abusive. He's guilty of being abusive to his former girlfriend, Grace Jabari. So that's really what, this verdict says. I don't think, by taking out the intentional and aggravated assaults, sticking to reckless assault and harassment, they're just saying, it was an aggressive relationship. Now, some felt the trial was over what happened in the car, specifically. That's the way his lawyer tried to frame it, saying, did he or did he not injure her in this car? But it seems that the district attorney decided that there was a bigger question as to whether or not he was abusive to his girlfriend, physically and emotionally abusive. Now, they also were rumored to have evidence from other girlfriends, people he's been in relationships with in the past. And, it was largely a closed court and we don't know all of the evidence. So it's a little bit hard to speculate, not having heard all of that. So I will say that he had a cartoonishly bad lawyer, which made him seem guilty from the start. And I also think it didn't help him that he was dropped by his entire team as soon as the story originally happened, when he was first arrested. Usually your management, your agent, your publicist will stick with you a little bit. Yes, Wavy, I just saw. We were just discussing that. We're going to talk about that. So, yeah, it's I think he had an image issue right from the very start. All right, so that's the verdict. That's breaking down the verdict to you. All right, so the next thing to discuss is my thoughts regarding guilty or innocent. Let me see what you guys have said. Let me end the poll, okay? Here it comes. 39% of you, only 39% felt he was guilty. 31% weren't sure about what the verdict would be. 19% felt that he was innocent, and 10% of you were not following. Okay, so my thoughts on it. As I've seen some of you just say now, this does remind me very much of what happened with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, where you have 2 individuals clearly involved in a toxic relationship who are likely hurting each other, not necessarily to the same degree, and they're clearly both at fault, and the most important thing is to separate them and have them both move on. That, to me, is kind of like, how I saw it from what I heard. I mean, I think there was a lot of focus on the video of her chasing him in the street, but I did feel that the texts that did leak were very damaging. If you haven't heard about the texts, there was basically some texts that were entered into evidence where Grace Jabari had a head injury and wanted to go to the hospital. However, Jonathan Majors was telling her he didn't want her to go to the hospital because they would ask questions. And what was she going to say? And she was promising him that she wouldn't, say anything. So that was pretty bad. So I think it's hard to read those texts and not feel that there was some kind of abuse going on. So I think that's definitely the situation. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand the nuance of the counts that he's been found guilty or not guilty of. But it does, as I said, it does seem to me that he was abusive of his girlfriend. But to the degree that he should go to jail, I think that's really the new sticking point. But those texts, I think, were the worst thing that I saw that was in the evidence there. For all the people who are focusing on the video, I do feel the text just can't be ignored. All right, so that's my thoughts on the guilty versus innocent verdict. All right, so could he really go to jail? All right. All right, so his sentencing, this is a very tough discussion, so I'm trying to make sure I get it just right. His sentencing will be February 6th, and he faces up to a year in jail. However, that was when all 4 counts were on the table. I would be extremely shocked if he actually went to jail, and I would advise the judge against sending him to jail. But the problem is, especially with that he was only found guilty on those 2 lesser counts. But the problem is this isn't a civil case like with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. This is a criminal case, so a financial penalty isn't on the table. I would recommend a suspended sentence or probation and a permanent restraining order with him not being able to go near Jabari. That's what I think seems reasonable to me. But part of the punishment maybe, Steven says, how about anger management? That's something that could be interesting. I would consider that. I think that would be reasonable. That I think that you would feel that he was going in a positive direction. Some of you are saying community service. I guess I'll ask you guys what you would say, what you would think seems appropriate. Okay? Hold on. Okay. What do you think is an appropriate punishment? Jail time? Anger management? Community service? And then you can say, anger management and service. I kind of think that last one to me sounds pretty good. Anger management and service seems to me to be maybe the most reasonable. I think jail seems unnecessary. So let's see here. So part of the punishment is that he now has a criminal record. That's really, a big part of it right there. So then I could unfortunately see the judge give him a few months of prison time, like a month. But that just to me seems extremely aggressive. Just seems very, very aggressive. I think jail just to me is way too much. So I think some people feel very passionately about abuse. Understandably, sometimes because they've experienced it themselves. So I think you always have to factor that in when people are discussing, the punishment for this kind of a situation. Joy, I think that jail is too much because I feel like it wasn't, as the jury agreed, not intentional. I feel like it was just an abusive relationship stemming from, as some people are saying, maybe anger management issues. Maybe he needs to go see a therapist. And I do think that there should be a restraining order, because I think he is a danger to Grace Jabari. But I feel that jail time, because of considering the extent of the injuries, I just feel jail time is too much. Harry, I don't think boops are appropriate in a conversation like this. My boops that I do. Okay. So the decision, let's see here. So the decision, let me close this poll before we move on to the next. All right, so 57% agree that anger management and sometimes some type of community service is the best way to go. 24% feel that he should serve some jail time, whereas 10% would go with just anger management and 7% just community service. Yes, Jack, I saw that. We're going to discuss that right now as we talk about his future at Marvel. Okay, so future at Marvel. Yes, Marvel was ready to go. They dropped him immediately. I agree with that decision. I don't see a path forward, especially considering the fact that fans don't even really like Kang at this point. I don't think Kang worked out as a character, which is why I would not recast the character. So I'll ask you guys what you would do with Kang. I would not recast. I would just move on from Kang. I would go straight to Secret Wars. Some of you want to see Doctor Doom, but is this really the way you want to bring in Doctor Doom? So we'll do... what should the MCU do with Kang? Move on, recast, and then Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom replacement. And again, anybody watching can vote in a poll. So I would not recast. I think, I don't think that really works. I think that every time the character walks on screen, everybody will know. Be like, well, we know what's going on there. And I just don't think Kang has really worked as a character. I don't think anyone's like, no, we're not going to tell the rest of Kang's story. I think to a large degree, everybody's like, oh, great, now we can skip it. I would go straight to Secret Wars. Again, as I said, I feel Doctor Doom is a tough character. Yes, I did see he has been fired. Marvel fired him right away. I think they were just waiting for that. I think they wanted just like Warner Brothers, I think they wanted the guilty verdict to back them up in there and to be the reason for for what they decided to do. And then Loki season 2 even already was already set up to give them an out, where they said they kind of had the Kangs under control. Although this doesn't bode well for moving forward with Loki, the show, because it was so wrapped up with Kang. So I think that creates a little bit of a problem for the character there. So maybe they can just figure a way to get him out and and bring him over with Thor again. Marvel, I really wish that Marvel would do their due diligence. I think that there were rumors, apparently, of his behavioral issues going on for quite some time. And I don't understand why, Marvel and also agencies, I think there's a responsibility to look in. You have a culpability. We'll talk about, you keep asking about Magazine Dreams. We'll talk about that with the Hollywood career section. So I agree with Tillman. Marvel should do background checks. Now, I think some people might go, well, don't people deserve a second chance? I mean, if you mess up once, can you never come back? I agree. I think second chances are important. And most of the time people do get second chances. But I think that, as I've told you many times before, Hollywood is very risk averse. And so I'm going to tell you, basically, I'm going to break down why people usually don't get second chances in Hollywood. I think that this is pretty bad, and I think the way Jonathan Majors handled it was very bad. I think that the legal team that he picked was bad. I think that his management team and his publicist not standing behind him was bad. I think, he had Johnny Depp had a lot of people step forward and vouch for him, which hasn't really helped his career either. And I don't really think that, Jonathan Majors hasn't had that same situation, which is weird to me because I've seen him be so kind on red carpets and in interviews. So, yes, Elliot, Marvel did fire him. He's been fired. I think you guys are right. Mark Wahlberg got a second chance. Robert Downey Jr. got a second chance. I think they both benefited from their discrepancies happening at a time when people, most people didn't know about it. The social media didn't exist. These things didn't happen. You didn't know. Most people didn't know what these people did. And so I think that's a difficult situation. But I think he's definitely done at Marvel. Marvel needs to move on, and I think there have to be some repercussions for his actions. And I think Lime Peel says Mel Gibson didn't get a second chance. Mel Gibson, that's an interesting comparison. Mel Gibson was so egregious and so horrific. And also, I have to tell you, I know some people who've met Mel Gibson in real life, and they've said he's truly appalling in person. So I think that speaks a lot as to whether or not people are going to try and help you. And, nobody wants to help Mel Gibson mostly, and, nobody really wants to help, and it's interesting that Mark Wahlberg is one of the people who helped Mel Gibson. Maybe kind of like is a kind of something about saying something about Mark Wahlberg himself, that, he does, Mark Wahlberg believes in forgiveness because of what he did. So it's a really difficult situation. So hold on, let me end this poll before we move on to the future at Marvel. All right, so what should the MCU do with Kang? 57% of you feel they should move on, 22% want to recast, and 19% want a Doctor Doom replacement. That's interesting. That's, that's still about 60-40, basically, between moving on and trying to salvage the storyline. I really feel that, Marvel has so many problems, and their storyline is such a mess that I think that they anything to get rid of a knot in the MCU, I think they should just take it and go. I think that the copying and pasting they're going to have to do to fix this, it would just be nuts. So I really feel they should move on. But 60-40 is almost 50-50. So we'll see what they decide to do. I used to have faith that they would make Kevin Feige would make the right decision, but now I'm a little less sure. But I think that they were right to let him go. All right, so the next thing in the table of contents is his Hollywood career. All right? What's going to happen? He can't work at Marvel anymore, but is he going to get any other movies? It's really tough. When the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial was over, I said I didn't think that Johnny Depp could come back. And a lot of Johnny Depp supporters felt that he could, but he hasn't. Fast forward, and he hasn't. I do think Jonathan Majors is and Amber Heard hasn't either, by the way. Amber Heard's career is also over. They're done. I think because they distract too much from the movies that they could potentially be in. That's just what everybody's going to focus on. And I think people are nervous to be on set with them. I think they're like, what am I going to get? What's going to happen? Do I want to be standing next to that person publicity-wise? Do you want to tie your career to these individuals? And I think that that's where it becomes tricky. And so this is how it happens, because I do think Jonathan Majors is very talented. But as a producer, I would worry about, the situation with drawing focus away from the film that I was making. And then also, I don't know if his behavior has improved. I told you, I think there are alarming red flags in addition to him being found guilty. So I don't know what I'm going to be getting on set. And that to me is very concerning. Maybe if he does the anger management, maybe if he does the therapy, maybe if he does the community service. Remember that video he made where he filmed himself breaking up a fight between two teenage girls that seemed so obviously staged? You have to question the judgment of somebody like that. And if you want to, tie yourself professionally to somebody like that, I think that makes, understandably, people very nervous. So what happens is that no producer is willing to go first and take the risk. And the more time passes, the more people go, you know what? It's just not worth it. And that's why I don't think you're going to see Johnny Depp coming back. Johnny Depp is able to get a role here and there, but he can't come back. It's just not going to happen. And I don't think Amber Heard is going to come back. And I don't think that Jonathan Majors is going to come back. Especially because, again, he just doesn't have anybody vouching for him. There's nobody vouching for him. He has some fans online, but where are the other actors or where are the directors who've worked with him? Why aren't they saying, this isn't the Jonathan Majors that they know? Where are those individuals? And that also, to me, would make me very nervous. If I was going to, join in with, to join up with that person. Donqua Brooks says that they feel that Black Productions will give him a chance. Maybe, although Dre Films just brought up Nate Parker, and Nate Parker, who was found innocent to some degree. I know that was like kind of a gray area with him. Nate Parker couldn't come back, and no Black Productions were willing to work with him. I think Black Productions will have the same concerns. Because, you want your projects to be successful. As Ben Green is pointing out, Will Smith is having a hard time coming back. At least they're making Bad Boys 4. But it's very, very, very difficult. Because again, it's not so much like, as a fan, it's easy for you to say, okay, I like this person or I support them. But when you're a producer in a studio that's investing literally millions of dollars, and if you're another talent like a director or an actor, it's really hard for you to you don't want to tie yourself to that person because you're worried about your own career. So that's what makes it very, very, very difficult. I mean, he'd have to have someone like Oprah or Tyler Perry, step in here and try and help him. And based on the fact that nobody else is helping him, I don't see that happening, because that would be a big risk on their parts. Because you have to always be afraid that if Jonathan Majors were to relapse or to have another situation, everybody would then look at you and say, well, what did you say everything was better for? Why did you vouch for this person? So it's like really, really, really difficult. So I honestly don't see a way back for him. I think that he should now, I think he should be concerned with, making sure he doesn't have a jail sentence. But it's really, really a difficult situation. As for Magazine Dreams, I mean, I don't know who would release it. It's certainly not going to be Disney. Disney is out of the Jonathan Majors business. And they were getting all in because they were going to release Magazine Dreams under their Searchlight banner. But it's just, it's just not going to happen because Hollywood, again, as I said, is so risk averse. And, that's the difference between a casual fan and the people who are actually engaged business professionally. So it's tough. It's very tough. All right. It's a really a tragic situation all around, and I wish, I guess, what I would say about this? I wish that people would step in earlier. One of the problems with Hollywood is because they're risk averse, they don't like to say anything until it's too late. And then they're all judgmental and sad and sorry. And it's like, well, why didn't you guys step in earlier? Why didn't anyone pull Jonathan Majors aside earlier? Why didn't anyone maybe think about whether or not they should be working with him earlier? You've seen it time and time again about John Lasseter. Everybody knew that John Lasseter was a problem. Bryan Singer, everybody knew Bryan Singer was a problem. And because everybody, as long as they're not involved and they're not making trouble and they're still making money, they just let it go. They just let it go. And, that's the problem. And that's why Hollywood keeps finding themselves in these situations, because they should nip this stuff in the bud. And they would have been helping Jonathan Majors, because it never would have escalated to this point. Maybe he does, he has had a difficult upbringing. He's talked about that. Maybe if someone had gotten him help earlier, this never would have gotten to this point. And so I think it's just really a tragedy across the board. And I think Hollywood does have to bear some culpability for just the fact that they just let stuff spiral out of control. Same with Johnny Depp. They were propping that guy up on the last Pirates movie set. And, if you watch the last Pirates movie, you can just see a guy who is just having such a difficult time with substance abuse that you're like, why is he even allowed on set? How could they do that to him? So that's how I feel about it. Okay. All right. So we'll keep the table of contents up there for reference. Let's do a Q&A. All right. Please be respectful of the severity of the situation and that, a man's life has, professionally at least been ruined. I do think he, of course, bears some responsibility of it, but, I think it is still sad. All right. Bapperwai says, will next Avengers get postponed? I feel, as I just said, that they should cancel Kang Dynasty and go right to Secret Wars. Robert Hayes says, could Disney just use Magazine Dreams as a tax write-off? I don't think they can, because they acquired the film. They didn't produce it. They acquired it off of the festival circuit. And Gabriel, I do believe that Magazine Dreams will just be shelved. I don't think it'll ever see the light of day, because I don't understand who would want to release it. I think it's just it's too many problems. And I do feel that while there is some kind of a curiosity factor, I think most people wouldn't watch it, to be honest. I think people feel very strongly about this kind of stuff, as they should. Not Modern Painter is talking about perhaps, some issues with steroids. We don't know if Jonathan Majors took anything, but, he did have a substantial physical transformation for roles like Creed 3 and Magazine Dreams. And, I think I can't speak to that, but I would put it in the category of Hollywood, having some culpability. What they ask of actors is extraordinary. I mean, I would never ask anybody to do that. In fact, I would say, I don't want you to do it. Although I think sometimes actors hide that because they don't want studios to know that they're using it, but they want to have that physique that gets them the role in the fans. Alex says, if you had to recast, who would you choose to replace him? Well, I like John Boyega and Ray Fisher quite a bit, but I do worry about how they handle themselves with the press. So that would give me some pause. If I had to recast, I really don't want to recast the role. I'd have to think about that. But that's my issue with Ray Fisher and John Boyega, even though I think they're both incredibly talented individuals. And I don't know what actor would want to be saddled with that. If I had a client, I would advise them not to take the role. Tito says, I have it to myself that some people don't deserve a second chance, and we need to start giving out first chances. There are too many talented people in the world. Oh, so you're saying, why should Jonathan Majors get a second chance when he was lucky enough to get a first chance and torpedoed his own chance? But I think, how can we exist in a world where there isn't forgiveness? I think it's very easy to say you won't forgive someone else or give someone else a second chance, but then, you never know. I think we've drawn such a hard line in the sand these days that I think it makes it difficult to exist. So I think context always matters. And I'm just telling you, based on what I heard about the situation in this case with Jonathan Majors, I guess I can forgive him as a person, but I do feel professionally he's too risky for the reasons that I listed. Trippy Critic says, where's Roseanne's forgiveness? Why do you do it, Trippy Critic? Why do you do it? All right, here's the thing. It's one thing to be out of control because you have emotional problems, and it's quite another to make a really hateful, racist joke that Roseanne knew what she was doing and felt she could get away with it, and that's the issue. Let's see here. Hold on, I'm going back here. I missed some questions here. Troy, I don't think we need Kang story-wise at all, to be honest. I don't think we need him at all. Stephen Carrier says, is this justice for Grace Jabari? Well, we got her out of the relationship, right? That's such a big question. I think you should be very careful about not wanting your pound of flesh. I've been seeing some interesting discussions recently. I forget where I saw it about, it was actually in Rebel Moon. I can't believe it. But it made an impression on me that, justice is one thing, but revenge can very easily be mistaken for justice. And I think where you really have to make sure is that you make sure you don't mix the two up, because you can get lost in revenge. So, I liked that. I thought that was a compelling argument in Rebel Moon, or at least the first half of it, because it's only half a movie. Okay. Josh says the Celestials should replace Kang and use Secret Wars as a way to judge. This is getting too complex for me. I liked it back when MCU was a little bit of a simpler story. Mudstar, I did see that Jonathan Majors was fired. Yes, it broke during the live stream. Jay Tandon says, will he appeal? I think it depends on I think he'll appeal. I think just for the sake of it, and you have to appeal right away. But I don't know if that appeal, I don't think that the appeal will be granted. Cadence and Cascade says he's going to be on ice for a while, but I think it's very early and premature to say it's over. Maybe you might be right, Cadence. It really depends, on whether or not he can find anybody who will vouch for him. Scott James agrees with me that Loki Season 2 can be seen as an ending of Kang's story. William Arazo feels A24 might release Magazine Dreams. I don't think they want to deal with that. I mean, that's what the publicity campaign is going to be all about. Magazine Dreams evens, by the way, to some degree. Rabbi Zeki points it out, says, I read some reviews of Magazine Dreams. As I said in earlier live streams, Magazine Dreams is a film too inane. You had a very strong reaction to that, Rabbi. I feel from what I know about the movie, I think that Magazine Dreams very much speaks to abuse and roid rage, and maybe potentially even would shed some light on the situation that Jonathan Majors might have been in himself. Jack Dent says Battinson didn't take steroids, and he was tiny, but it worked for him. Bernardo says, I always appreciate so much the care you take when dealing with such delicate discussions, Grace. Thank you very much. As a black man, I'm sad for Jonathan Majors, but I can't excuse abuse of any kind. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we all are, Bernardo. It's a shame to see it happen, but there has to be some repercussions. Furious Fan says, how can you call the police, have video, and still be guilty? Well, you're leaving out the texts, Furious Fan, which I think, are real and are quite damning. Let's see here. Devin Henderson says, how do you think Star Wars could be done? Secret Wars could be done without Kang. I gotta tell you, all that's necessary for Secret Wars is that you have a bunch of different multiverse characters fighting it out on a distant planet or universe. That's all you need. Corey Hawkins, Lyra, is a pretty good choice. I like Corey Hawkins. But again, why would I do that to poor Corey Hawkins? And Abu Bakar Salim, I love Abu Bakar Salim tech-based gaming, but again, I don't want to do that to Abu. He's such a great guy. He's going to be on House of the Dragon. So, he's building his own career. Daniel Haradi says, what do you think will happen with Creed, and do you think Michael B. Jordan will support? I do not think Michael B. Jordan will support her. I think he would have supported already. I think Creed will just move on without that character. Jonathan Majors was so good in Creed 3. It was incredible. I saw it twice. And the second time I went with a friend of mine who turned to me during his big scene at the end in the locker room, and she was like, wow, what an amazing actor. Leo says, this makes me upset because I wasn't expecting to get bad news today, hoping for the best for Jonathan. Thank you for this, Grace. He definitely has his supporters. And so, maybe there's some path forward there. Asensio, father from Raised by Wolves, who's Abu Bakar Salim, just so you can put a name with the face. Danny says, hey Grace, who would you be your choice for the next MCU villain? I do feel like maybe we could bring the X-Men in here. That would be good. Get Magneto in here. I think Marvel I don't know. What's the point of introducing new villains until Marvel fixes their villain problem? They last for one movie. It's frustrating at this point. They have some great ones that they already killed off. Alex says, give Kang to Terrence Howard. You want to go full circle, Alex? Let's see here. Oh, let me go back here. I appreciate everybody's engagement in the stream. Trying to get to as many questions as possible. Mr. Real Shane says, whose ultimate decision was it to fire him? Kevin Feige's? Well, I think that something like this would sometimes also come down from the top. You know, I think for sure Bob Iger would weigh in on this. I think this would have to be a company-wide decision. Remember, when James Gunn was initially let go from Marvel, Bob Iger and Alan Horn had weighed in on that, and Kevin Feige, in fact, fought for James Gunn, and that's the reason James Gunn was able to come back. And I don't see Kevin Feige, at least so far. It's very, I mean, Jonathan Majors was just let go, but I don't see Kevin Feige, fighting for him. Although some could argue, again, why does the white talent get invited back? I think that what, Gunn did was also appalling, especially for a company that deals with children. Why Jonathan Majors isn't allowed a second chance. Let's see here. That's very kind of you, Apple Pits. Let's see here. Dustin Donner says maybe we could do something with a variant for Kang. I really just think we should just move on. Okay. Well, let me go back any further. Let's see here. Whelm says, I say use Secret Wars to forever end the multiverse concept we started in the MCU. It invalidates story consequences and death loses all meaning. Yeah, I'm not enjoying the multiverse. It turned out to be a horrible idea. Odile Jones says, does the MCU need a big bad right now? I'd rather see Avengers versus X-Men, quite frankly, with a big misunderstanding. Jose says, can the MCU really go back to simpler stories after Endgame? Also, can you quickly summarize the story, please? I joined late. I can't summarize this whole stream. I think they can definitely go back to simpler stories. They should build again from square one. Shane Roll says, it's second degree and third degree unintentional. I feel like no one cares about what's in there. He didn't actively seek to hurt her. I think that's right, Shane. I think you're definitely right. I think that's a very important aspect, that this was like they're feeling that while he was dangerous to her, it was emotional. I think that's very much a part of the verdict. And the jury made that clear by not finding him guilty of the intentional counts. And so people should pay attention to that. We have a jury, we have a legal system in this country, innocent until proven guilty. And then when someone is found guilty, read the details so you understand what the jury decided. Thanks, Michelle with no A, or Michael with no A. Let's see here. Dory Does Voices says that she feels that she doesn't like the idea that some are implying that the black community will support abusive people regardless. And, she doesn't feel that that's appropriate. I don't think that that's true. I mean, I can see where you might be getting that from, but I would say from where I stand outside the community, I think people are just concerned about someone getting a fair chance. Because so often people in the black community do not. So I think and also I think a lot of people really, really loved Jonathan Majors and felt that he was doing so much for the community. It was really a shame to see him saying that himself in some of the texts that were released. That was really unfortunate. But he was doing a lot for the community, and he was on the fast track to superstardom. And so I think some people are disappointed and they don't want it to be true. But I think it's not like a Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation where people are like pretty 50-50 split. I think that the people who are refusing to believe this is small. But I think, we have to understand where they're coming from for the most part. I think it's so important today, and I think that's something we've lost with social media. Really try and understand the context and the place where someone is coming from. You don't have to agree with it, and you can just walk away from it. But, just understand what you're looking at. I think that's so important. Simple Plan says, why do you think Marvel let Josh Brolin have a chance? That's not fair. Well, the thing is that Josh Brolin did those things, I believe, before Marvel hired him. And since all of Hollywood decided that they were going to let Josh Brolin get a pass, Marvel went along with it, as does everybody in Hollywood. So that's the difference in that situation. If Josh Brolin did what he did to Diane Lane today, I think he would not have gotten away with it. Questionable Burrito says, hey Grace, love the channel. If Marvel continues down the path that it's currently on, how long will it take before it all comes crumbling down and Disney has to step in and pull the plug on the MCU? I think they're going to let him go through Secret Wars. I think they're going to let Kevin Feige go through Secret Wars. That sounds pretty good. And he's got Deadpool 3 lined up. I think I would be like, you're costing me a lot of money with these reshoots, man. Like they're basically remaking Captain America 4 or substantially reshooting it. And they had to do the same thing on Multiverse of Madness. But I would still give Kevin Feige through Secret Wars, for sure. Because I think he deserves some credit because he just did so well for so long, for 10 years. Wraith says, we don't know the full context of those texts or what they were referring to. Also in the text, Major said that Jabari wasn't speaking facts. Well, I think that's wishful thinking on your part, Wraith, because you definitely see her saying she has a head injury and Jonathan Majors telling her maybe she shouldn't go to the hospital. And I think anything short of somebody saying you should definitely go to the hospital and get your head looked at is pretty suspicious. Did John Boyega really say he doesn't want to play Kang on Twitter? See, I told you. I would get... John Boyega is so talented, but someone should take his phone away from him. Gabriel Reyes says, if they choose to move on from Kang, should they mention the character's departure or lack of presence? No, I think they wrapped it up really well in Loki Season 2. I don't think they need to keep that. I think we're good to go. Danielle, why can't you send super chats? That makes no sense. John Till says, if they were abusing each other, why are we only talking about him? Very convenient timing and when people want to be fully included. Well, I don't think anyone can point to any injuries for Jonathan Majors. I think that's the issue. David Q, I do feel his career in Hollywood is likely over. I agree with Jose Calas. I don't support him because I feel like, he needs help at the very least. He has to work his way back if possible, but that doesn't mean you can't acknowledge that he was a talented actor. I mean, he is a talented actor. Also, with the Will Smith situation, Jada Pinkett Smith keeps making it worse and worse. Everybody just feels like, let's just move on from this couple. They're just very bizarre. The Gray Ghost says, what exactly was Majors guilty of? He was basically found guilty of being abusive, emotionally, physically, to his girlfriend. Let's see here. McCall said, where did it go? George Newman says, Wanda's episodes on What If are the only thing I'm interested in with the MCU right now. I'm interested in a lot of the MCU projects. I mean, I'm hoping they're good. I even thought the Marvels wasn't that bad. But boy, lowest grossing Marvel movie of all time. That's certainly a statement. I mean, you just can't ignore that. Some of you are being pretty mischievous. Oh, there you go, Danielle. Grace, if I was found guilty to such charges, my organization would fire me as well. Is it really different anywhere else? Most organizations have clauses. That's right, Danielle. They have to protect themselves legally. I think they had obviously no choice but to fire him. Thanks, Johnny. I was really fussing with my hair before the stream. Let's see here. Trying to make sure I get to... Okay, let me try and answer some non-member questions. Let's see here. Oh, Alberto, though, says, what about his current girlfriend, Megan Good? Did she say anything? No. I question her jumping on the Jonathan Majors train at this point in time, but that's a choice she decided to make. I don't think a poll, B555, with all due respect, I don't think a poll about whether or not you would watch Magazine Dreams is maybe appropriate. I guess maybe it is. All right, I guess let's see here. Do you still have an interest in seeing Magazine Dreams? That's the movie that was supposed to get him an Oscar nomination. So, yes, in theaters. Yes, on streaming. And then no. For those of you, anyone can vote in a poll. For those of you who don't know, Magazine Dreams was the independent film that was picked up by Searchlight, formerly Fox Searchlight, now owned by Disney, where he played a bodybuilder who had serious rage issues and what it was like for him in a relationship. Interestingly enough, with a white woman. So let's see here. So I'm just waiting for you guys to vote, and I'm looking over the questions here. Dana O'Leary says, the fact that Disney announced the firing so quickly, you know they had the statement pre-written. Yeah, they were ready to go, for sure. Joy, I don't think Marvel could do an investigation to that degree. Jordan Smith says, I feel for him, but the evidence wasn't great. Did his friend's ex-girlfriend come forward as character witnesses, like with Johnny Depp? I don't believe that they did. So that's a problem. Let's see here. Tiff says, in a way, it's good the MCU is in a bad place because recasting Undoing Kang isn't the only issue. I don't know. I mean, I really love the MCU, and I love the Marvel storyline, and I just want to see it get back on track. Jonathan McKenzie says, Miss Randolph, does the character have to be replaced by a black actor? Why can't they use someone else who is just right for the role? No, I really think that would be like the worst. Jonah, I think honestly, that would be the worst thing that Disney could do. And then Elia says, the energy for punishment over rehabilitation is bad vibes. We've got a long road ahead of us. Yeah, I think rehabilitation is a really, really important part of, it's an extremely important part of I think you can't have punishment without rehabilitation efforts. I'm sorry if it's messing up a little bit. I can't affect it. If you reload, it works. Okay, good. All right, let me end this stream. And see, this is what's interesting, because it would seem from our conversation here that some of you were very interested in seeing Magazine Dreams. Yet 58% of you said you had no interest in seeing it. So as you can see, that's one of the reasons that I think it's going to be difficult for Jonathan Majors to move forward. People just at least want a break. So 31% will see it on streaming, 9% in theaters. But basically 60% having no interest in the film whatsoever means it's just not worth the headache of releasing it and people being upset with you for releasing it. It's just not worth doing it. Tiff, let's keep it to the Jonathan Majors Marvel situation, because I think that it's just not appropriate to ask other questions during this stream. Okay, we'll do a few more questions. Let's see here. That's okay, Tiff. I'm glad you asked. So some scoopers are apparently reporting that they will recast the role. As I said, maybe they'll do that. You know, Kevin Feige might insist on sticking to his plans. I think it's a mistake, but I'd love for it to actually work out. Alex Bravo says, "What about Renslayer stepping in? That could be a path forward for Loki. Although I feel Loki really just needs to move in a different direction, just totally different direction, because Kang was just so central to his story." Oh, thank you, Silver Scale. I'm glad that you feel that I did. Although some of you are still in favor of recasting. All right, I think that I think it's time to log off. I think we had a good conversation about this, and I think we should, end on a high note. I feel for Jonathan Majors, but I feel like this was the only outcome. And, we'll see how Marvel rebounds. I am in favor of just moving ahead and forgetting the Kang stuff and dropping Kang storyline, the Kang Dynasty movie. But I can see that some of you are very much in favor of it. And so, the next time we discuss this, we'll be talking about what Marvel decides to do. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for this serious discussion. Thank you for your contributions to it. And I will see you on the next live. All right, everybody. Bye. Bye-bye.